The floor is given to the founder and dean of High School of Economics, Yaroslav Kuzminov. Dear colleagues, I'm glad to open this summit. Quite a few people here in the auditorium, although I'm sure that the main action will take place online across Russia, across different countries in the world, because the format itself that we're moving towards, it's radically changing the format that the universities are working along, the format of scientific and educational sphere. Auditorium is not limited by its brick-and-mortar walls. It's very important, and we should be able to evaluate how clear we are for the audience. How fresh is the knowledge that we are communicating to people. We understand that we cannot just limit ourselves, and the reaction to what we're saying by a small group of people who will not be critical towards us. The first thing I wanted to say is I wanted to communicate to you the words of the Minister of Science and Higher Education of Russia, Mikhail Kotyakov. When I was on my way here, he called me and said that he learned about this summit taking place. He is going to a meeting of the Russian government, so he won't be able to be present here himself. He asked to tell the participants that the Ministry of Science and Higher Education is reviewing the online opportunities as a big source of growth, of efficiency and quality of higher education in Russia, and we'll try to include the state as fast as possible and the whole of the educational sphere. So a big hello to you from the minister. If you allow, I will I've prepared a small presentation, and I will just dwell on what I think about the digital revolution and about what it means for higher education. It's clear that that education is working for society, it's not working for education. If people could make money from air, they would just live for themselves, they wouldn't pay any attention to the society. Well, this never happens in real life, so we should begin with what's taking place around us and with what's happening once people graduate from universities. First of all, is displacement of some professions and elements of labor by digital services. As the latest studies have shown, it's mostly about displacement of monotonous brain labor, accountants, dispatchers, secretaries, postmen. In the next decade, this will include some other areas of work which may be associated with monotonous brain labor to a lesser extent, but like drivers, securities, technical translations, they will stop being important. So people from these sectors will go to other sectors, and this is about 15% of the labor market in any developed country, sometimes 20. So it's basically every fifth person who's employed. Whether he or she will be able to find something else that they can do to make money and provide for him or herself and their families, it's the biggest challenge of the future for us. Second thing is that the changes in the traditional professions of brain labor, the ones we argue about if they are artistic or routine. I'm speaking about doctors and teachers. If they're creative type of labor by a university professor, head of a lab in a medical university, is undoubtedly so. Sociologists often say that in the teaching job there are a lot of repetitive elements, so a lot of people don't go to teach specifically because it feels as not creative enough. So these professions, we can rid them of the routine elements. The teachers, with the help of modern digital technologies, can get rid of generating tasks and checking tasks. You will deal with only the more important tasks, as if there were a helper helping the teacher do it. A doctor can, to a great extent, get rid of data searches and use digital assistants for that. So this labor will become more creative because the routine elements will go away. And there's a new set of professions which are connected to the realization and adaptation of digital services, the search for and processing of information. According to a lot of estimations, it's 10, sometimes more than 10% of the labor market. The de-actualization of traditional professional programs of education is happening at the same time. Renewal of professions and technologies on the skills market, which is also based on the digital revolution now. The average, specific qualifications tied to specific technology is about 5 years. And about 10 years ago, it was 7 to 10 years. There's no exact data for that period, but the retrospective data shows that now it shrunk. So professional education system is no longer able to prepare people with specific sets of skills. People cannot come to university, to technical school and say, I want, after 4 years of study, to have this specific qualification. No one will understand them. On this background, what is called full degree programs is becoming more and more neutral and is not leading to specific qualification. One of the only exception is the applied bachelor's degree, but in most countries applied bachelor's degrees are feature professional preparation in the last year of studies. So they started about a year from graduation. Professional qualification is given only on the market of master's degrees and with a lot of demands to enter. And a lot of importance is given to micro degrees now, and the importance is growing. So signs of specific qualifications and skills that you can get in the 2 weeks training that you can get by passing professional exams, and those micro degrees on the market of hiring specific employees start, I can't say displacing university diplomas, but start competing with those in terms of importance. The breakdown traditional forms of organizations and methodologies of higher education. Well, what we know that going to lectures in later years of studies, according to independent research, is lower than 15%. A lot of higher education institutions take lectures to a more interactive format. And as we all understand that taking it to an interactive format is a very costly thing to do. You cannot effectively work in an interactive format with 300 people. But the feedback does not happen with the whole auditorium, so to speak. And the next challenge is the limiting of a number of subjects that can be effectively studied at the same time. A number of national systems of higher education, first of all Russian, those that inherited the Soviet model. In Germany they have 7-8 subjects, and this leads to the fact that students stop taking at least half of those seriously, and in some cases stop treating all subjects seriously. Mass individualization of educational trajectories is happening. There's project learning, like collective projects of students from different subject areas. So the system of the high school, the system of education, of professional, it's wider than in higher education institutions. It's on the one hand in the crisis of traditional forms and actively looking for new forms. But as we understand, interactive lectures and project learning, they require a high qualification and a lot of investments in offline option. When higher education institutions need the deficit of basically professors that can head 15 projects at the same time, there aren't, those people are not present that can create competitions for 15 teams at the same time. It's very new skills, and most importantly in the traditional option, this is requires a lot of human resources. So a lot of universities trying to ignore the challenges that they're facing and try to just recreate the model as if nothing has happened. So recreating the old model, lectures and seminars, as if nothing has happened, without paying attention to the low attendance of the students. On this background, new players on the market of higher education is happening. We all know them, they're present here. Global and national platforms of online courses and private companies that are providing short courses, giving micro degrees. Giving out micro degrees. These are global corporations that start seeing themselves as a platform of professional standards with micro degrees. Microsoft is a classic example of that. It was the first one on the micro degree market that offer digital libraries of projects and materials and big volume cases of new engineer degrees. Students deal with libraries of projects and materials, combining them in architectures. And this is given by large corporations that are taking over the market of educational materials of the new world. So the last thing is professional associations and the companies that are organizing preparation for professional exams, that oftentimes they are giving out the so valuable micro degrees. But the key new event, the biggest event here is the revolution of online courses. Open online courses on global platforms, Coursera, edX, both of those with participation of Russian institutions. Udacity is a third platform. According to the number of students in the world, they're nearing the quantity of students in the world in general. So maybe another 3, 4, 5 years, and they will be covering up to 200 million people. Now, I remind you, there are 150 million people who are formerly students in the world. These platforms that I'm talking about, they cover about 60, 70 million. So my forecast that is happening in 5 years, but maybe that'll happen even earlier. So they're equal in terms of the coverage to the system of higher education that was put together by centuries, was coming together in centuries. So they're already in coverage. They are equal to the old system of education. And the most important thing is that they're equal to the higher education in terms of, to the traditional higher education in terms of the quality of information given to students. This year, the group headed by Igor Chirikov published the results of their research. And Igor Chirikov conducted an experiment of the following nature. There were 3 control groups of students from 10 higher education institutions, from engineering departments, which made it that much more interesting. And every one of those universities, they had 3 control groups. The first was studying a traditional course, second was studying a course in a form when the lectures were replaced by online courses by leading Russian universities, and they had offline seminars and exams, a form of blended learning. And the third one was doing only online courses, and they measured the results of those student groups. The result is that they were very similar to each other. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting result. And we will be checking it on different study groups in different countries. My hypothesis is that because they took the mid-level, mid-levels, higher education institutions, this is why we got this result. I can make an assumption that if we take this study and conducted it, if we took the study and conducted it in universities that work in the lower sector, we would see the advantages of online learning in terms of better results. If we had it in top universities with a lot of leading scientists as professors, we would see the advantages of offline, traditional learning, because online courses, they will be replacing basically the scientists present in this university. So they broaden the opportunities to work with the material, the author of which would not be present here. So the pedagogical effect, the educational effect of online courses is thus aiming at being not just a replacement of online education,
but all other things being equal, it can be replaced. Whether this replacement will take place or not, it's up to the university to decide, and up to the students. The cost of the course? The cost of an online course on Coursera is from $50 to $100. On the Russian national platform, it's about $30, which means that we can squeeze out the weak online courses based on economic criteria, because the online course is simply cheaper. They are coming to understand this only just now, but it hasn't become a trend yet. But I'm an economist, and I'm certain that if there are no serious changes, if we don't try to increase the prices by 5 times, if there's nothing else extraordinary happening, then the traditional courses will be squeezed out by online courses in many areas. Finally, online platforms offer areas of specialization, so that students can major in a certain subject, and they can benefit from high technologies, and this is what Coursera is mostly benefiting from. So their students are getting micro degrees, they're getting certificates that they are experts in a certain narrow subject area. How do these courses come together with the other courses? Georgia Tech, Jinzhou, University of Illinois, University of Coventry, those universities that have a lot of experience in this respect. HSE has pointed out that it is considering the possibility of massive built-in of these online courses into their educational program, so that they will become an obligatory prerequisite for completing their courses. So the feedback will be mandatory, and as I've said, they can boil down online communication with the professor to, resolving some non-standard issues. Here you can see the present. What the present situation is. Coursera is more widely present in most Russian universities. 6 institutes have over 6 courses, and HSE and the University of St. Petersburg have over 50. HSE, that I already mentioned, in 2018, online courses were included in curricula of educational programs and in 73% of students' individual study plans, study programs. In 2017-2018, the curricula used 280 MOOCs, out of which 35% were in English. So you can see that there is this expansion effect that is coming into play here. So these are the major areas of specialization. Four in English, six in total, four in English, together with industry leaders, Google and Yandex, with leaders in a specific subject area, University of San Diego for computer science. We have students from 195 countries. We took 13th place in the world in terms of the number of subscriptions for areas of specialization, and the grade point average of the students for their areas of specialization is 4.6 out of 5. The top 10 countries in terms of the number of students, it states India, Russia, Canada, China, Great Britain, Germany, France. So this is a snapshot of what online education is really all about. And HSE believes that our online path has just begun. These are the challenges that we'll be facing in the upcoming few years. The opportunities of psychometrics, the universities are getting a lot of big data, like filtered, condensed content, and so they can find out how their students, learn things, how they respond to certain methodology features, so that we have a clearer understanding of how effective our online courses are. And here, it seems to me that it is a real revolution for educational community, just as it was for doctors when they became capable of doing a blood test. In some cases, everything's right. We can do a blood test for over 100 indicators now. And it'll be the same at the universities. We are on the threshold of a massive increase in knowing how effective we are. Another challenge that we'll be facing, and the challenge that we should be prepared for, is the world with no language barriers. According to the consensus forecast of the leading digital companies, in 2030, digital translation will be available on any smartphone, and everyone will be able to communicate with a person from another culture, just as if he was accompanied by an average translator. So in 90% of the cases, it will be enough for having, complete feedback. It's probably not enough to replace arts and poetry and fiction, but it'll be enough to get by. So it'll be another factor for squeezing out those programs that are globally not competitive enough. So there is a danger, there is an impending danger for countries whose educational systems are closed, just like Southeast Asia, Latin America, Russia, and the Middle East. Well, when I say Russia, I mean the former Soviet Union. because it's here it's sort of locked for the Russian language. So these systems will be transforming very fast, and their leaders should be prepared for it. And last but not least is the development of educational content outside the universities. About 2 weeks ago, I made a presentation at a digital forum, and I was asked a question. At what university shall I study machine learning? Where should I study artificial intelligence? And I said, if you want to be at the top, you shouldn't be studying at the university, but you should be knocking at the doors of Sberbank, which is the key center for studying artificial intelligence. So those you should really be knocking on the doors of those companies that are heavily investing in making artificial intelligence possible. So what responses shall we offer? This is what I suggest we speak about today. We are thanking the president of HSE, Mr. Yaroslav Ivanovich Kuzminov, for his presentation.